Live from the backstretch at historic Saratoga Race Course, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow. Racing Across America is brought to you by Pinnell's Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, Saratoga, just minutes from the track. And the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany. When you can't make it to the track, make it to the Clubhouse Racebook.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America as we kick off another week. That's not really a kickoff. That's more a swing or a. I can't. I'm not going to put my leg up here. But as we hit it out of the park to wrap up the meet here, kicking off a Wednesday for the final week. 6 days of racing. Don't forget there is racing on Labor Day, and as mentioned during the handicappers report, it's a big weekend out of town as well. Kentucky Downs starts this week. $3.5 million Nashville Derby. Pacific Classic is looking like it could be an intriguing race with fierceness going west for Pletcher and Rapoli, Nisos, and Journalism sticking to their home court. So that should be fun also. So some big races coming up out of town, but lots of great action right here at Saratoga as well. And great action here this morning. We'll be joined by Tom Law in a few, Saratoga Special, their weekly visit. Tom is in the mix. We'll get a little review and preview with Tom Law. And a little bit later on, Frank Miramati in the house. We'll talk a little Saratoga season and beyond with Frank. But as always on a Wednesday, kicking things off with our friend Tom Amello. Tom, good morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning, racing fans. As you point out, Seth, there is no shortage whatsoever of pools in which to swim with your money.
Absolutely.
On this week. And there's no shortage of races here either.
No, absolutely not. No, they're filling it up, and there'll be some early post times later this week, so keep that in mind as well. But I mentioned Kentucky Downs opens up. I'll ask you, to me, Kentucky Downs is a complete puzzle. It's almost a dartboard because you just don't know who's going to like the track, and it's a weird undulation and things, and it's a complete puzzle, I think.
I watch Kentucky Downs. I don't bet Kentucky Downs, and I watch Kentucky Downs for races afterwards. I want to see how well horses did over this quirky course, who had tough trips, downhill, uphill, over the hill, through the dale. Yeah. And, it's very European, so it's unique. The purses draw everybody. Jose said, I want to win, I want to win, I want to win. I think I'll go to Kentucky Downs because I'll be a bigger winner there.
Yeah. Understandable, given
no, that's not a
Nashville Derby, $3.5 million. And if you're right, you get paid because of the field size. They put the money out, and it's the old Field of Dreams. If you offer it, they will show up, and they do. But it's tough. But if you're right, you get paid.
Yeah, and the other thing is when you're watching races, and I've never been there, of course, but when you start screaming for the wire, it's still way up the hill, right? Wire. Wait a minute. Yeah. Oh, it's another 8? Wire.
That was my first actual visit to Woodbine a few years ago. We went up for a field trip of production live from Woodbine. I was standing inside watching a monitor, and the turf course, for folks who don't know, they have two, but the main one is on the outside, and they're now synthetic track is inside that, but the main turf course is on the outside. So I'm watching the monitor. They turn for home. My horse takes the lead. And I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. I took a couple of steps out the door and looked, and safety is looking, oh, okay. We still have way too much to go for me to feel any confidence in that. But Woodbine's fun. We'll be up there in a few weeks for the Woodbine Mile. Let's get some thoughts on the past weekend. I think we have the stretch run to the Travers Sovereignty with a nice score, kind of validating all of our thoughts for him being at the top of the class. I will say, it's off to Bracket Buster and the BBN team and Vicky Oliver tried to get Vicky to come on the show Sunday morning, but she was leaving first thing. But and they were thrilled in the winner's circle with their horse running second, and I don't blame them. But he was far behind Sovereignty on a nice performance.
Yeah, that's a great performance. And, Belmont, Godolphin, and Sovereignty are nothing but controversy. They opted not to run in the Preakness, thereby saying or snubbing the Triple Crown, and they were criticized for that. The horse has done nothing wrong. He wins the Travers easily over a less than stellar field. I mean, all week I think we saw clips of Holy Bull's win in a 5-horse field, and that field was much tougher. But you cannot argue with the winner about who showed up to fight him, right? It's not his fault that the journalism stage on the East Coast and the Pennsylvania Derby is going to draw some people. So it was a solid effort and obviously a perfect prep for him to work up to the Breeders' Cup.
Clearly loves the 1.25 miles too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's right in his wheelhouse.
Yeah. Now
the Belmont and the Travers wins there, and that Kentucky Derby all at 1.25 miles. So that's clearly his I would say his favorite distance.
Yeah, and now we get a chance to look at journalism in the Pacific Classic and see how in any way he's matured and if he's going to be stronger. And he's going against elders here for the first time.
And if he wins against elders, it flatters sovereignty.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then then the game is on, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps. Listen, they may take him to Japan. They may skip the Breeders' Cup and go to Japan, right? Why not?
Also, some thoughts on another nice performance on the weekend. Bookham Danno gets it done in the 4-go. And what a summer. We had Derek Ryan on the show on Sunday morning, and he was just, as you would expect, very enthusiastic about – how do you not be enthusiastic about winning 3 graded stakes at Saratoga over the summer with a nice New Jersey bred. Bookham Danno, again, one of the big performances on the weekend.
The only thing I want to say here is I like Scotland and Mulligan here.
Well,
and
that's
I did use, of course, use Bookham Danno with Scotland. Remember, he was one of our trip horses, Scotland. What can you say? Paco fits him perfect. He always runs his race. They give him ample time to recover. And, we'll see what comes next.
He said the Breeders' Cup really isn't on his radar, which is interesting. I'm going to be interested to see whether the team behind Bookham Danno says, yeah, let's do it. That was a win in your end. Let's take our shot. And he didn't totally rule it out. But he said, I have a plan right from the beginning of the year, and that wasn't there. So we'll see what Bookham does.
I'm just going to say this. I want, in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, I want someone who can go 108 and change in a 7-furlong or mile race. You don't have to win the race, but I want someone who's going to be at the 8th pole in 108 and change and keep on. And I can't remember Bookham Danno's performances, but if he doesn't have that, I'll be looking for somebody else in those races.
And just finally, also Torpedo Anna, who had a tussle coming down the stretch with Darth Vader. I think I said it on the show Sunday morning, and I've since talked to a couple other people. Sunday morning, my total was 6. Now it's a couple more. I've talked to 8 people who needed Darth Vader on Saturday, and that's a tough beat at 11-1, nose behind Torpedo Anna. But credit to Torpedo Anna for getting the win there.
Well, it seemed to be the right time to take a stand against Torpedo Anna. I mean, and she was all out. She made the first move. The great ride, great timing. There's no question she has heart. But if you look at her figures this year as opposed to last year, she seems to have regressed a little bit, or at least she hasn't put up the big number. And I think that was if you're going to take a shot, that was the day.
I took a shot. I took it with Leslie's Rose, who ran third.
Hello.
But again, as you say, all credit. And Kenny McPhee came out afterwards and said they'll head to Keeneland for the Spinster, or maybe the Delaware Handicap, which I thought was interesting.
Well, are they running for money in Delaware? They run for money in Delaware, I think. And I'm sure that Delaware would be real happy to have Torpedo Anna. There might even be an incentive there. And it certainly is not going to be the same as Kentucky, right?
Yeah, no question about it. And this was the first year I think they moved the Delaware Handicap to the fall. And if they do get Torpedo in, I guess there are two ways to think about it. If they do get Torpedo Anna, it would be a feather in the cap for them, and whoever had the idea to move it would get a raise, I would think. But also, you wonder if it would scare away a lot of, like, what would the field size be?
Well,
I mean, but
who knows?
yeah, it's hard to say. All right, let's jump in and get some thoughts on last week and maybe horses to watch going forward. We'll kick things off looking at the fifth race from the 21st. It was a maiden optional claimer. This was an off-the-turf event, and we're going to see number 5, Paradise win. Number 3, Fonzie Angel was one you had interest in.
Fonzie Angel is in the red cap, white silks with the red stripes, who just disappeared behind the trees at the rear of the pack, number 3. And this horse is going to make a solid middle move after being squeezed back at the start. To move up the rail here, and then is going to drop back. Seth, this is a typical Z race. Move forward, drop back, come again. Well, there she is. She's moved up, and as the outside horse passed her, now she's running evenly here while there's a 3-way duel up front. So she's getting some pace up front. And now she's picking it up again here. And she's still saving ground. She's going to tip out. And it's better on the head-on, but this is a better shot of everything she does. Now she tips out here. And jockey, where is it? Turned it over.
Lascano.
Yeah, Jose, it looks like he wants to angle in here, inside. All right, then he's going to come back outside and going to bump with this tiring horse, right? Maybe not bump, but shy, and then really kick in. And they don't take the gallop out far enough, but this one gallops out past the winner. Now, as you pointed out, this was off the turf. This is the kind of race where I'd like to see her maybe go a mile on the turf, go a little longer. Might even be okay coming out of the chute if she gets a pretty good post, because this horse finished up really well. And she was She was 6-1 on the board. The favorite was Pan, who did very little. And Paradise ran a nice race under no pressure. So I think we got something here to look forward to. Certainly not next week, but
no, down the line. Back stretching on the far turn to have her run second, you would have thought it's not a bettable play, but that was a good run in the stretch from Fonzie Angel, no question about it. All right, a few days later on the 24th, we're going to take a look at race number 4. Alamera is going to get it done at 3-1. National Archive runs second at 5-1. Fleetingly, a horse I liked, runs third at 3-1. But beaten favorite, number 10, Speed Shopper. And you want to talk a little bit about beaten favorite in here, vulnerable favorites, let's put it that way.
Well, the issue here is how many horses in a race in the top 4 choices really look like the favorite. And that's the whole question here. You know, we all go through the race. We take a quick look, or we browse, and then we peruse, and then we get a headache. And so the whole question is, all right, the 4 is the 4. He's the favorite. Whoever it is, he's the favorite. And how can we find someone, or can we find someone whose speed figures may be close but not as fast, whose record at the distance may be better or as good, and then move on from there? And so, to me, especially on the turf where trip is so important, the question is, how can you find an option? And if you're not looking for an option to the favorite or the favorite's twin, and the day that you find the favorite's twin is probably going to be 9-2 to 6-1, because he's going to get ignored by the betting public. And it's just a question of what are your habits and what are you looking for? I don't know how I really don't know your process. We've never talked about how we attack a race or what we're looking for in a race. which I think is I call that the mutual time. We just share things for the good of the group.
I can tell you in here, Speed Shopper, it was to me a vulnerable favorite. I didn't have Speed Shopper in my mix in here.
Yeah,
I had it 5-2-1-4. It came out 1-4-5. So I was perfectly happy with the results in this one with Alamera at 4-1 on the morning line.
Oh, what a finish!
At 3-1.
What a finish!
Yeah, it's a nice
from
late
Alamera.
run here. From
what an absolute
from a
finish.
Chad Brown trainee coming late. Who would have thought?
Gee, yeah, that's right. Afterburners on, and so what are we going to glean? What are we maybe going to learn? It's just a question of how we we're all looking to how the race shapes up. Where's the speed? Where's the closer? Who's the fastest? Will fast take the race? Will pace dynamics influence the race? And I think this is a conversation that we have to have more often, Seth, in the context of what Craig Mikowski put out today. And unless you're a Twitter geeko, you may not be aware that Craig, who was a guest here with you earlier in the meet, and he does the figures for Timeform, put out a chart that showed, I think there were 20 tracks where the favorite is winning 39% or more.
Yeah, and I mentioned that early on the handicapping show. There were a handful that were close to 50%.
Yeah.
It's like, shoosh. Yeah. But Speed Shopper to me was one to maybe take a little shot against. Now, the win in the last race for Speed Shopper was a 78 buyer, which put that one right in the mix with some of the others. But it was a maiden special victory, whereas some of these others had more experience against some of them coming out of stakes races with comparable numbers. So, yeah, to me, Speed Shopper was definitely a vulnerable favorite there.
Okay. I want to take this time, Seth. I want to thank Capelli President John Signer, Shannon and Mike in marketing, all the techs here, Danny, Dino, and Anthony, which really sounds like a bad law firm, and you for allowing me the opportunity to spend these minutes with you and the racing fans. I really appreciate it. It's always fun, and thank you all.
Oh, happy to have you on board. One of the Capello TV OGs, as the kids say. So
we're happy
happy to have you plugged in, certainly. And as we mentioned when we looked at a couple of the races, you tossed out some horses to watch that performed okay, and maybe we did more of that today, hopefully, with Fonzie Angel going forward. With Tom, I've appreciated it.
Enjoy. Racing fans, thank you very much. Have a productive end of this meet, and keep betting with Capital.
Tom Amello. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, Tom Law will join us a little bit later on. Frank Miramati. All of that after this break. Stay tuned.
Oh, gee.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
For centuries, the bond between horse and human has been forged in trust and hands-on care. Thoroughbred racing is combining that tradition with cutting-edge technology to raise our standards even higher. New investments in wearable biometrics, advanced imaging, and AI help optimize our safety programs.
That opening quarter mile was a quick one.
Every day, a commitment to improving their care. So win or lose, it's safety that runs first. To learn more, visit safetyrunsfirst.com.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Wednesday morning as we kick off the final week up here at Saratoga. Always a little bit bittersweet. And I will say a little bit funky this morning, too, as it has rained a couple of times and the sun has come out a couple of times. So it's been a little bit unpredictable. But I said when I watched the weather last night, it seemed like that might be the kind of day with some showers just briefly kind of hit it, nothing substantial. And that's the way the mornings worked out. So, keep it in mind, though, for this afternoon. If we get more rain, you could maybe see some changes, but I don't anticipate that given what we've seen so far and given what we've gotten weather-wise so far, probably could use the weather we've had today. All right, as promised before the break, join now again in the Wednesday Saratoga Special slot this morning, Tom Law. Tom, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. Good to be here.
Happy to have you on board for the last go-around for the Saratoga Special. You guys obviously doing good work again throughout the meet with the 25th anniversary of the special. And one's out today. There's one more issue to go.
That's right. Yeah, today was the second to last. Issue 19 was today, so 20 is scheduled for Saturday. So we haven't quite gotten started on it yet, but we will. We just got number 19 delivered.
Take a little time.
It was a late night last night. We had a 48-page paper today, so added a little Kentucky Downs stuff in there.
Oh, so there's picks for Kentucky Downs.
Yeah, we did selections for tomorrow. We'll have what we call a Kentucky Downs special. It's like a 4-page. It's not really like a pullout, but it's 4 pages.
Yeah.
Good sponsorship from them, so that's great. And they have us do some selections as well. So we'll see if I can do
if
any
I go to
there.
the website, will there be selections for every day of the meet?
No, not for every day of the Kentucky Downs meet. But if you do go to our website tomorrow and Friday, you'll get selections for Saratoga. And then I believe in Saturday's paper, we'll have Saturday and Sunday. And then I think we're going to go website for Monday, Labor Day. Yeah. Okay. Joe and Sean were asking me yesterday, are you going to put the picks in for all 3 days in the last paper? And I was like, I kind of want to see how things go.
Yeah.
We've been putting them online. We haven't really done double days in the paper. I think we did maybe once. So,
and you are doing very well. I had been on catch-up mode over on Equidaily, and the one sheet I usually don't put the totals. I'm not in charge of that, but on Equidaily I do. And just a few weeks back I got behind, and so I finally I'm at 101. If I looked at the paper, 114.
Yeah,
very good.
Yeah, I don't know what my best is, but I'm hoping to get there. I think it's in the.
I always like to hit 120, just so you're averaging 3 a day, so you're giving out some kind of decent information. Right. You kind of feel like. But your ROI was okay too. You're like a minus 20,
minus 28 and change.
That's like two modest winners away from positive territory. I'm about halfway through the meet. I was doing pretty well, and then the ROI went south a little bit. But it's still, I'm not getting crushed or anything. But
I guess like anybody, there was like a couple days where I just had like 1 or 2 winners, and it killed me.
Yeah.
I guess anybody could say that really, but like 3 days, I feel like it was just bad for no.
There've been a couple of Saturdays where I've won or 2, and they were short priced, and you're doing one of those 12 or 13 race days, and you wind up with a $5.
Those days are tough.
Like,
you got to make up $28 on 14 race cards. So hopefully for some good luck today.
Let's get some thoughts on last weekend. Again, you guys did a lot of great coverage there. Sovereignty, we'll watch the stretch run again. Thoughts there. And, you guys always pick up some of the side stories that I mentioned earlier. One of the side stories to me was the next performance from Bracket Buster, where the big smiles on the faces of the connections of that horse, the BBN folks and Vicky Oliver, I heard one of them say, short of winning, this is the best feeling, second to Sovereignty and the Travers. So good on them, but Sovereignty certainly looked very good on Saturday.
Absolutely. We'll give them credit for, coming. I kind of felt like they're taking a stab here, but obviously they knew their horse. And Vicky said that the horse breathes really well down at Keeneland before she shipped him up here. It was great to see after the race, Vicky congratulated Mott and Mott congratulated her. Sean, he wrote about it in his piece today. It was great. But,
he came out he specifically came out to kind of give her a hug and congratulate her. Yeah.
Speaking of classy, Sovereignty, I guess we already knew his class, but again, just his dominance, in that last furlong, especially, he's really just breathing air right there, and the rest of them are gasping for air, and he really just separated himself. I mean, he's already separated himself quite a bit from a lot of, better 3-year-olds, but really did it there. And the mile and a quarter is always interesting.
Phenomenal.
Such a different race. Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see. I've talked about it a couple times already this morning. If journalism wins that race out in Southern California, that's a feather in Sovereignty's cap.
Absolutely.
If they can beat it some nice older, so that's going to be fun to watch Pacific Classic this weekend with regards to what we saw last weekend up here. Also wanted to pull up a replay because I know you did the follow-up on Hope Road in the Ballerina Hope Road. Speaking of West Coast, Bob Baffert trainee gets it done pretty nicely again in the Ballerina. And this was an interesting story as well because she wins the Ballerina and she's out of a Ballerina.
Yeah,
win.
Marley's Freedom, the same people that raced her bred this filly, Hope Road. Nice quality road, did everything you wanted to do. Very professional. I mean, she was favored in here. Hats off to Scylla as well. A little bit of change in tactics for her in the sprint distance, got her into the race early. And, that was, I guess, maybe she had some bad luck circumstances in her last couple of trips. That way you give her a chance to win, but ran down by a better filly at the end. Bob Baffert, always a factor on the big days for sure. He wasn't here, but he had a contingent of horses here and came away with a win. He watched it on the grade 1 couch, I guess, back home in California, like he says. But pretty cool. The people that Cicero Farms that owned and bred her, he was telling me after the race that they're 3 for 3 in New York. I think Marley's Freedom won the Gopher Wand at Aqueduct, won the Ballerina here, and now they've won this race here. So I was like, oh, you've never lost in New York, So they're from Rancho Santa Fe, California. So right around the corner from the Breeders' Cup, really. I mean, it's 5-6 miles away.
Yeah.
He, in fact, told me that they're like 2 miles from Del Mar. So pretty cool. And I guess they have he was joking with me about they always have a Halloween party every year. Of course, that's right before the Breeders' Cup. I was like, man, that's going to be some Halloween party. He was like, don't put that in the paper. I don't need people showing up. So I guess I'm just broadcasting it here. But no, he was a cool guy. Ron and Barbara Perry, I believe is their name.
Talking about also broodmares and running horses. And I said, the IRS says we have to sell a few of them. And that was the thing as well. But it was a fun story to have the mother of the winner also be a winner of the Ballerina. It's always the history of the game is always fun like that.
They bought her pretty cheap, the mother. I think.
I think the article said
$35,000 for Marley's Freedom, who went on to win $1 million change. And now producing a grade 1 winner too. Yeah, pretty good little breeding program they had.
That's all right. Also have a stretch run of the Forego. Bookham Danno, I thought was impressive on the weekend. We had Derek Ryan in on Sunday.
Cool.
It's just to put together 3 graded grade 3, grade 2, grade 1 over the summer at Saratoga. He's been a great story.
What a horse.
Yeah, it's just incredible.
New Jersey bred, shows up every time. I mean, what's he, 4 for 5 now at Saratoga?
Yeah,
what a great record. He's like a modern day quick call or something.
Yeah,
just loves the dirt track here, the sprint distances, and at the top level. Quick call was not necessarily winning at the very, very top, but, the shows up. You got to give him credit. A son of Buchero, who stands here in New York now. Those guys in New Jersey, they hit the home run for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, what a ride they're on with that horse, and he's fun. And maybe they're going to skip the Breeders' Cup. And Derek probably talked about that. He's kind of.
He said he kind of has the whole year mapped out, and that wasn't on the plan. And he seems to be. He wasn't absolutely committed, but he seems to want to stick to the plan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Breeders' Cup is great, and I was thinking about it last night. I think I said it to Sean or Joe in the office. I said, the reason why he is so good now is because they didn't go to the Breeders' Cup last year. He would have been a 3-year-old last year running against older horses. It's tough. It's a tall order. It's hard on all these horses. As you'll see in the next several weeks, horses sort of fall by the wayside. Like you look at those fields that we had for Travers Weekend. Some of those horses are awesome, but they might not show up just because it's a grind to get there, and little problems here and there, and they can derail a campaign. Yeah. I know that they talked about maybe taking Bookham Danno back to Saudi or over the Middle East again, but they didn't do that this year with him, and now they're having a real productive campaign. So hats off to them for how they've campaigned him. He's a gelding, so they can kind of have fun and kind of pick and choose their spots, and maybe they'll take a shot at the Breeders' Cup. I wouldn't fault them for that, but maybe they wait until it's back on the East Coast. It's the next 2 after this year will be back. So, and he's, like I said, he's only a 4-year-old gelding. Yeah.
It was funny. He mentioned the trip to Saratoga, or I think I mentioned, hey, he had that nice second to Forever Young.
Yeah.
Boy, that was, and he kind of went, yeah, we should have won that race.
Yeah, I know. He just barely got beat, right? I mean, by a horse that almost won the Kentucky Derby, and is a real serious horse in his own right. For sure,
he's been fun.
I'm anxious to see what happens to Forever Young. Like, where is he? Like, I'm.
That's a good question.
Curious. I vote in that Breeders' Cup Classic poll now, and I've sort of been putting him on the poll, but I'm like, he doesn't run a lot, so he'll probably show up in the Breeders' Cup, but I'll have to do some research once we get out.
And if he does, that'll be a handicapping puzzle.
Indeed.
And finally, Torpedo Anna, I mentioned earlier. I've talked to like 8 people who needed Darth Vader, and that was a rough beat if you had it, but it was a gutsy performance by Torpedo Anna.
Absolutely. I mean, hats off to George Weaver and his team for having her ready, and she ran so big. It's like one of those losses where you're stung in the moment, right? And then maybe the next day you might feel a little bit better.
Even in the winter circle, he had a look on his face of mixed, kind of like, that was a nice perforce, but I wanted to win.
Proud of her.
Just the look on his face.
You got to be proud of her. I mean, to lose by that little. Sean talked to him, I think, yesterday for the stable tour, and he's still stinging a little bit. So maybe that's not going to go away. But, because she's thrown some big races already before. But, Torpedo Anna, hats off again to her. She's awesome and a fan favorite, I mean,
As they came down the stretch, the crowd was, and then after the race coming back,
great round of applause coming back.
It's fun. And Kenny, interesting. He says either the Spinster or the Delaware Handicap.
Yeah, how about that? Very interesting. I was like, the Delaware Handicap, and then I thought, oh wait, they moved it.
They moved it. Yeah. So, and I said earlier, whoever made that decision, if Torpedo ends up there, that person gets a race.
Yeah, I mean they'll have a crowd there. I mean everybody in the Mid Atlantic needs to show up. She's never really run in the Mid Atlantic, so it'll be kind of cool.
Yeah. All right, let's. There was a little review. Let's do a little preview. Again, you're rolling very well with the selections in the Saratoga Special. So let's get some thoughts on some of the stakes action today. Race number 1, the Jonathan Shepherd. I pulled up a replay of Hidden Path. That was my topic. I have Hidden Path over the Insider, 10-1 over 12-1. They're both coming off wins over racetrack configurations. Hidden Path, this track and trip last time. So I went in that direction. I had it 4, 2, 9, and 7. How did you see the Shepherd?
So when I handicapped it last week, I actually liked Gimme 5, Cyril Murphy's horse coming over from Europe, making his first start in the States. He's running some pretty decent races over there in England. Cyril and Irv Naylor kind of team up, and they spend a decent amount of money on this horse. So, he's well met with Jared Galligan. And I went with Jack Fisher, the 5, Quick Master in the second spot. Liked the fact that, he wasn't probably fully cranked up last time out in the Kaiser, which is a novice race, and this is a grade 1. So it's a little bit of a step up in class, but there's kind of a mixture of novice eligible horses and the kind of the grade 1 horses in here. Jack's horses always kind of do well with a race under their belt. He was a little keen last time at one point in the middle of the race, made the lead, and then, kind of faded to finish 3rd in there. And then in the 3rd spot, I wound up with Zarak the Brave, who was in the Shepherd last year, was favored, kind of stumbled and fell. He's had some kind of bad luck. I just feel like maybe he's going to put it together. He ran a pretty good race last time out in the Smithwick to finish 3rd, behind a couple of decent horses. And, like I said, he was always kind of well-meant. He was a horse that, was always a short price horse a lot of times when he ran over in Europe, and then a short price again when he came over here. So, maybe he's a little bit of a price.
Man, we got him just about all covered.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
I'll ask you if because when we did the handicapping show and I had it circled when I handicapped the race the other day, Sweet Will, Hurricane Farm. Is that like a throwback to the Sanford Farm,
I believe it is.
Amsterdam?
Yes, I believe it is.
The Mormino brought up, what about the silk colors? And I said, I hadn't even looked, and I said, yeah, purple and gold. Those are the Amsterdam High School silks, and they were the old Sanford Hurricane Farm silks. Right. So I'm wondering if this is some version of the family down the line.
Yeah, He trains for some of those other horses. For
Okay.
them. We were watching a race the other day, in fact, and there were similar silks. It wasn't Hurricane Farm, but we were watching the race, and Joe actually said, "Is that Arch Kingsley's horse in here?" And I was like, "No. But it was similar."
Yeah.
It threw Joe for a loop too.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you guys are spot on that.
But
He scratched last time out of the race, and then, but he's re-entered again. So we'll see. I haven't seen scratches yet for today. So
I'm gonna have to go down and take a look at the silks as a throwback to the old Sanford Farm from my hometown.
Absolutely, that's right.
Move on now to the rescheduled funny side for the 2-year-old New York breds, field of 5 in here. I couldn't get past Toga Twist. There's some breeding here. The lone sibling, 6 starts, 2 wins, a second and a couple thirds. Minor inconvenience off the last effort. And the first are from Jeremiah, 4th and 1. Maybe a little bit intriguing as well by Maxfield, who's off to a good start. So 2, 5, and 3 for me. What did
we
you
have
see?
it covered. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, 2 Toga Twist as well. Liked his debut, back in July 6th, back in July 4th weekend. Really threw it down with the runner-up in there, Valentine Crusader, who's a nice horse that John Ortiz is pretty high on. He came back and actually ran another ding-dong race and finished second by a nose again. I took 4th and 1 in the second spot. Jeremiah, I was talking to him yesterday, a little preview in the paper today about him. They like him. He's done really well since he's come in. He was kind of targeting another maiden race for him, but they kind of needed some help getting the race to go. So they went on with him. And then, minor inconvenience, ran off the turf, going 7-8. So he shortens up a little bit for Amelia Green, but he ran a good race last time. And I would expect him to show up as well again today.
I was kind of surprised that, again, it was scheduled for Sunday. They didn't get enough, and now they just kind of barely get. They're putting up 150K.
I know.
It's like, man.
Yeah, Jeremiah told me that, and I didn't put it in my story, but he said that, there were horses that were probably targeting this race that either kind of got hurt, little things, or a few horses have been sick that were kind of going to target this race. Because there have been New York bred maiden special weight, races for the colts.
Yeah.
So a little bit of a bummer, but at least they brought it back.
Yeah.
But yeah, you knew they were having trouble filling it when you got 2 maidens and a first-time starter maiden.
Yeah, and
so
150K for New York breds. You think you'd take your shot if you had a decent little maiden in here and looking at the field. But
where's Mo Plex when you need him? Right?
Exactly.
Speaking of Jeremiah.
And finally, 8th race today to PG Johnson. Yeah. We're looking at the 2-year-old field. This is always kind of a fun race. Listen with anticipation. Mile and 16th on the grass. I went with Time to Dream, and I'm wondering, morning line, that's the favorite. I'm wondering if Scratch It won't wind up as the favorite with a little bit of a better buyer. The bettors now just key into the buyer so much. So I had a 2, 7, 4, and 1, but I'm wondering if the odds will flip on the 7 and the 2. How did you see it?
I had 2, 7, and 1 as well. Interesting, the 1, Blanchett, obviously an Oscar performance. Named for the actress. And,
I hadn't even really picked up on that yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Finished 3rd behind the Snowface Princess, who sold for a bunch of money in the Fasig-Tipton digital sale yesterday, but had won the Skidmore stakes as well for Todd. Graham's horses, you'll see this a lot. They'll finish 3rd maybe in the debut on the grass, maybe 3rd or 4th, running a good race, and then they'll come back and run well. So, no qualms about him running a maiden in here. Manny Franco and Graham do well together. So a bit of a factor, but I took time to Dream as well in the top spot, not this time. Irad Ortiz is riding, needs to pad the win column a little bit when the guys are heading to Kentucky Downs, but at least for a day or two. But he'll be back obviously for Sunday. But yeah, it could be kind of a chalky stakes sequence maybe, but maybe some bombs in that Jonathan Shepard. Who knows? The way the jumps have gone, haven't been true to form, at least on the odds board this year.
And I didn't hear. I checked on Twitter, but it's a go with the.
As far
turf,
as I know,
right?
I hadn't heard.
I mean, the rain we had, and people saw a couple of times during the handicapping show, it rained, but it wasn't heavy, and it was also brief. And again, given the weather we've had so far, you can probably use it. And given we have a grade 1 here, it's the last week. I would
rescheduled already. Hopefully they run it. Yeah.
I would expect it.
I delivered the papers this morning and I snuck out and I went for a little run. And as soon as I left my house, it started raining. So it rained about 30 minutes, almost the whole time but then, like you said, I heard you say the sun came out.
Yeah.
It didn't even get muggy. It's nice.
Yeah. No, the sun's gorgeous. Yeah. It looks like a great day. You say you're a runner. I know you're a runner. How about the competition Ramon was in?
Oh my goodness. It's the last man.
Can you imagine doing that?
I could imagine maybe trying to do it. I think he's a machine, you know. My hat's off to him. He and I talked about it before he did it, and I was like, man, you know, you're going to do great at that. He's such a determined guy that's, you know, competitive. He's got great drive. I mean, 4 miles.
It sounds like he came up to him and another guy who was a pretty similar mentality.
Very much so.
And if folks aren't familiar, it's 4 miles
in an hour. Every hour.
And the sooner you get done, the longer you have to rest, because at the top of the hour you start another 4.
Yep.
And he went 112 miles in 27 hours.
Yeah.
Like,
answered the bell. They ring a bell, you know, you got to get to the start line in a minute or whatever. And then he kept answering the bell, you know, and then the guy finally tapped out. And then he had to go do a lap by himself to finish it off. And he said that's really when it hurt him. You know? He was like, I could really feel it on that
what he
last.
Said, that last lap. He was struggling.
What a machine. I can't imagine. I mean, somebody asked me, how far do you think you would go? I was like, I don't know. It was a trail run, you know. I'm not.
Yeah, at one point he said he was slipping because it rained a little bit. He put on boots.
Yeah, it was like here. Yeah, it was raining like it did here. I don't know. I could do a couple laps, maybe. You know, I mean,
that's crazy. That's crazy. Me, I don't even think I'd venture to try.
I did a 10K down in Thatcher Park Sunday, actually, the day after the Travers, and you know, it was longer than 4 miles. Yeah, 6 and change, but it took me more than an hour. And I thought, well, I got the 4 miles. Okay, now I get to rest, but only for like 10 minutes. I don't know that I would answer the bell too many times.
Tom, appreciate the visit this morning, and you and Joe and Sean and the interns the other day as well, Alec and Julia. They were a lot of fun to have on. It's fun to watch those guys up there every year working for the Saratoga Special. But again, the paper doing a great job, 25th anniversary. And it's really become a fixture up here at Saratoga. And again, you can pick it up on track or places around town or online at thisishorseracing.com. And again, people can keep that in mind as well for the selections during the last week, because you're doing well. John Sapazian continues to
always lurking.
Do well. Yeah. So we appreciate the visit. And again, keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having us on.
Happy to do it. All right. We'll take a break. When we come back, Frank Miramati is in the house. Stay tuned. It's been referred to as possibly the best equine-themed gift shop on the planet. Impressions of Saratoga. Impressions of Saratoga, celebrating the Saratoga and equestrian lifestyles. It's your #1 choice for Saratoga souvenirs, apparel, and gift shopping. We have gifts for the entire family, and we're pet-friendly too. Visit us online at impressionssaratoga.com or come on down. Impressions of Saratoga, 368 Broadway, downtown Saratoga.
Why just watch the races when you can be in the middle of the action? For nearly 20 years, Bonaventure Stables' share-based ownership program has made thoroughbred ownership affordable for the everyday fan. Ownerships of 5 and 10% are now available on a nice selection of horses. As a partial owner with Bonaventure Stables, you'll enjoy all the benefits afforded every owner. Visit with your horse in the private stable area. Greet the trainers and jockeys in the paddock. And when your horse wins, savor the moment in the winner's circle at Saratoga, Belmont, Aqueduct, or wherever you bring home the prize. Based in historic Saratoga Springs, Bonaventure Stables has been training winners and creating memories since 2005. Learn more, see available horses, and meet our team at bonaventurestables.com.
Stretch, Bracket Buster on the inside, and Sovereignty and Bracket Buster a long way back to Magnitude in third. They're in the final furlong, and we are witnessing greatness.
Last Saturday, Sovereignty coming down the stretch and winning the Travers. The call from our next guest, Frank Miramati. Frank, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you on board and talk a little bit about, prep and anticipation and the performance for a big race like that with a horse that has just been phenomenal so far.
Such a beautiful horse. He's been so perfectly campaigned to have a chance to call the Kentucky Derby winner in the big showdown with the Preakness winner in the Belmont Stakes. Kicked off the summer in amazing fashion. I think that was, without any question, from a race calling standpoint, the most pressure would have been the Belmont Stakes. It's an American classic, and it's this big, who's better in round two, So that was incredible for me. And then I had a chance to call him winning the Jim Dandy, which was very nice, just to kind of show that even though that's not what he, quote unquote, was pointing for, he had the class to do it. And then this race, they left for a reason. They didn't want to see him again because he is just one of those horses. I've read the word generational out there. He's one of those. We don't know yet. We have to see him do it against older horses and ideally see him do it even longer because the sport, we talk about it every year when their great horse shows up. Sport needs, heroes like him, but he is such a beautiful horse.
Yeah.
And so to have that privilege to call him in a big race like this, if you look at that replay, he collared Bracket Buster right around the 8th pole, and then he won by 10. I mean, that's unbelievable to win by 10 that quickly, and it's just he has that stride and that presence that those are the moments the track announcers dream about.
I have to ask you about the other performance on the day that must be fun to call. Torpedo Anna just edges out Darth Vader, but again, she's been fun to watch. I imagine she's fun to call, particularly being a fan favorite the way she is.
That's the thing. I mean, in the end, the race that she won, I mean, she had Darth Vader on her for a furlong. And those who want to say that she was fortunate to win this, I strongly disagree with that because Darth Vader was right at her and had 11 or 12 seconds to get by. And so the fact that she indeed showed what is called the heart of the champion, take nothing away from her. She is a fighter. And I put out a social media post that it was just fitting on so many levels that the personal answer would come down to a photo. The end of her brilliant career, nailing winning colors, which still makes me nauseous because I was a winning colors man. One of my favorite moments of life was watching her in the infield at Santa Anita win the Santa Anita Derby. So that was a sad moment for me. But who would think that later in life I'd be here at the home of the Phipps? And so and to be able to call that race and to be able to see her last year just missing in the Travers with an unreal, that stretch of fierceness and Torpedo Anna is one of my favorite moments of all racing, let alone moments that I've had a chance to call, but to see her wanting to get him. And so for her to get that nod, I wasn't positive she won. I thought she won, but Darth Vader's nose came right down right before the wire. So there was no way I was going to take that risk. That's why we have placing judges. But I have to admit, as thinking about the moment right then, I was hoping she won because in the end, she's the fan favorite. In the end, when the champion can hold on like that, she's been great to Saratoga. Our fans went nuts for her. So even though I have no bias and no rooting interest going in, and believe me, if it came down to betting on the race, I would have bet against her in that race. I would have never taken her at odds on in that race because there are the big questions after she had the sound defeat and then she won last time with a pretty soft trip. Is she going to be able to beat the best, right now? Where does she stand? We don't know. But when the photo came up, I was hoping she won so that the crowd could react the way they did. And it was just a phenomenal moment. And I thought that it was fitting for her after on the same day last year taking that vicious L that she was able to get the big W. So it was one of my favorite moments. And that's what Saratoga is about. It's these moments of celebration, of excitement, of the best horses, coming to the biggest stage and letting may the best horse win.
Talk about overall what a day like that is like for you as an announcer. Is the prep work different? Because we had Danno had a big performance as well, and again that one has become kind of a fan favorite. Hope Road comes in for Bob Baffert and gets it done in one of the grade ones. So it was a big stakes day, and it was not only big stakes day. Some folks were lamenting on favorites, but that kind of meant that the betting public was getting it right, and the horses that we were all rooting for were winning. As I say, as an announcer, is there different prep work, getting ready for a big day like that?
Certainly. It's a much more stressful situation than one might imagine because on one hand, Seth, we're looking forward to the big days. We want to call the best horses as track announcers. The other hand, there's an immense amount of pressure, and there's all kinds of other things that go on behind the scenes. People coming to the booth, visitors, announcements, this, that, distractions, left, right, sound checks. You know, there's so many things that people don't realize. It's not just about call. And then you want to, as an announcer, you want to come with it for the moment. And you don't want to repeat yourself with the same words. So there are a lot of things to think about. But my style is such that I really don't like to, set things up, because believe me, if I could do it over again, I would end the Travers call with a nice alliteration of sovereignty is simply sensational. But you know what? Those things go out the window when you're calling a race and the adrenaline's flowing, the crowd's going wild. You can't sit and prepare. But that would have been a perfect ending, because he is simply sensational. Yeah. And look what he did in a period of a few seconds in that race. But I thought that it was nice to, look, the way Patch Adams won coming through on the inside. Horses don't rally inside for the most part. And so, yes, I think the people who are betting the big spread tickets and the, looking for prices here and there might have been disappointed. But the chalk bettors had their day if they hammered it home, right? So it's nice to see the best horse win. And it's nice to see results that make sense. And it sort of verifies that, this was the best of the best. And so to answer your question, yes, there's a little more preparation. I try not to over cloud my mind with too many possibilities. You just got to look. My idol Trevor Demon says it best. Open your eyes and tell them what you see, and that's it.
I like that. And you mentioned, I hadn't even really thought about that before, but you mentioned sound checks and other things going on. It's got to be different for you as an announcer now, too, because you're part of the Fox broadcast, America's Day at the Races, Saratoga Live, because I hear you when you click on, you thank the whoever the host was.
Some people don't like that, by the way. There's some fans out there like, stop it with the thank you, Greg, thank you. But it's part of the broadcast.
It's part of the broadcast,
You should do it the first time. You don't have to do it every time, but the key is to show a seamless transition, because we're all on the same deal. And so sometimes if they come to the gate, I may mention a few words about something that, is relevant, not to get carried away and talk too much. I'm a big believer in less is more from the track announcer perspective. I think a lot of track announcers talk too much and people really don't want to hear it. So I believe that just keep it simple and, let the commentators commentate and let the analysts analyze. And in the end, my job is to call the race and celebrate the winner. But there are a lot of moving parts. And so I'm listening. When they're going to the gate, I'm listening to what the guys are saying. And sometimes I'll listen and they'll be arguing about who's going to be on the lead. And then when the gate breaks, when the gate opens, I can sometimes smile to myself, say, well, this guy had no clue who was going to the front, or this other guy got him again on who went to the front, and so on and so forth. So once in a while, if let's just say Jonathan will say something like, I think it's a foregone conclusion that the 2 is going to be asked for everything he has out of the gate. And if the gate opens and the 2 is, the guy's on him, I'm like, and as expected or whatever, I'll throw in a little thing because, again, we're all working together. It's part of the deal. And I think that those guys, look, I've done a lot of shows. I worked for TVG for 9 years. I worked on at least 20, 30 of these shows between Saratoga Live and at Belmont. That is very hard work. You know this. Television is not as easy as it looks. You're on there for 3 hours, but you got to be on at all times. Sometimes longer. Now these shifts are 4 or 5 hours. By the time you're into your 4th hour on those shows, in my experience at least, your brain's getting a little fried because there's so many other things going on. You got to pay attention. You got to have commentary. You got to be prepared. Look at all the notes you have in your stuff. Yeah. So the one thing I will say about all the people on that team is they have to over-prepare. They have to have so much material in front of them, and they can't use it because it's not relevant. You can't just jam it in to show people how smart you are. So you have to be prepared much more than what you deliver. But in those moments, you got to be ready if something happens or if a certain horse wins. And I think for me, when I worked on those things, the important parts with maiden races is to know the family, to know horses that are debuting, to know horses that are trying distance for the first time, trying turf for the first time, where the family. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then in the end, you might not have two set. I remember one time I was working on a show and there was something I wanted to add about a horse. And so I kind of raised my hand because we weren't on camera and it didn't get to me. And that horse ended up winning at like 12-1. And I thought to myself, man, that would have been a nice little nugget that like the half brother in his second start did this or that. But too bad. You just got to move on. The producers are just trying to organize what's happening and put out the best product for the fans. So there's a lot. I think it would be fun to do a segment of how the shows are produced. Maybe on Fox one day, because I don't think, to hear what's going on in the truck, what they're saying, go to this camera, talk about this, we're going to be moving to that. Those are things that I think the fans would find very interesting because there's a lot more than just talking to one another or making picks. You have to be prepared and you have to also, be patient and realize that it's not going to get to you. Sometimes you might not have a chance to say this, but that's what broadcasting is all about. Those guys do amazing levels of prep going in.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. If it's done well,
yeah,
people just think it's seamless. They don't realize what went into it, but it's done well because of all that prep work. And I can completely relate. I always over prepare. If a guest is late or doesn't show up, I have to fill up 5 or 10 minutes or what. So you have to be ready.
Live TV,
but you hope, and you're likely not going to get to that, but you're prepared to do it. You're right. There's a lot that goes into it, and I've said for years now, since they started that, I think it's a boon to the game. It's helpful to the game. They get national exposure daily, particularly up here at Saratoga. But
and
the
we're
rest
telling
of the year
stories.
as well.
The sponsors of the show, the farms that are heavy participants. You know who they are. You watch them, and those farms have spent a lot of money to make sure that this show. It's not only to support NYRA and the thing. It's also to support the whole industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we tell stories. We visit the farms. We have behind the scenes updates on the stallions and the human interest stories. But that's why people watch on Fox Sports, because they know that they're getting a lot more than just the race. And it's particularly during Saratoga, when there's so much time in between races. If you think about how hard that is to fill that time with only one track, I mean, it's not an easy task. So you have to have a lot of material. But look, we've got Maggie and Acacia that are in the paddock spending great time teaching people every day. And they take notes. And what happens is the fans take notes. So you might have a horse that Maggie thinks, look, this horse here is a good-looking horse. He might not be ready for his debut. He looks like a horse that might run long on the turf. She's not the only one noting that in her little notes. There are fans that are then waiting. I have friends of mine that say, oh, this is the one Maggie said stretching out on the turf. It's stretching out today, 10-1. So those are the horses. You're learning something along the way. And I think that's really important because there's an art to handicapping. I always say it's very important to watch replays. I do believe that firmly because you can develop your own opinion. You don't need to worry about who whispered that this horse is ready or that one. Watch for yourself. And it's not only trouble trips, Seth, right? It's horses that are just powerful in their victory, or, you could see that there's something more to them that you want to follow back without listening to anybody. I think it's important to maybe combine other people's opinions of what you do, but have your own as well. And the best way to do that is to pay attention and watch replays.
Yeah, 2-year-old comes down the stretch. There's a little green in the first start, but you can see some talent there. They're going to build on that experience kind of thing. And it might not be in the trouble line that they're kind of like, just going back and forth a little bit. So I agree. Watching the replay is important. Let's talk a little bit about your career. I have trainers in here all the time, and I would say most of them remember their first win. Do you remember your first call?
My first race call?
Yeah.
Not only that, I remember the call. Of course, it was at Hollywood Park in 1992. Not like most people that are just starting out. I really had never practiced with binoculars. I didn't even like binoculars because my dad's friend in this box, like 7-something at Santa Anita, he had these big binoculars, and a couple of times I looked, and I just didn't like, because I could see the track from the backstretch and all, and so I really wasn't a big fan of watching with binoculars. But I remember my first call vividly. It was 1992, closing day. I won't bore you with the whole long way in which they finally allowed me to come in, but after a test in the press box, they let me call 2 races, and one I did as Trevor Denman. It was won by a horse named Glowing Crown with Alex Solis for John Franks, trained by the legend Jack Van Berg. One of the biggest honors of my life is I got to eulogize Jack Van Berg many years later. May he rest in peace. What a great and funny and phenomenal horseman he was. And then the next race was a 4-horse driving finish. I called as 3 people. I started the race as the late, great Harry Henson with his son Gary right next to me. And Gary gave me the green light to do that, which was an unbelievable feeling. I remember Gary, I could still see Gary. I'm holding up these binoculars, calling the race. And I knew the field back and forth because I knew that there was no time to be looking around. I still know the field. It's crazy. 1992, it's a long time all of a sudden. Anyway, I could see him out of the corner of my eye, looking at the program, looking outside to see if I was saying the right things. 4 horses in a driving finish to the wire. And Lafitte Pink Eye got up on a horse named Amji One by a nose over Norcliffe Dancer for Myung Kwon Cho, who was best known later for the very rich maiden National Lore. But that horse won by a whisker, and it was a driving 4-horse finish. And it was, I'm not saying this just to be, it was one of my best calls of all time. I think it was just like an out-of-body experience. It's safe to say subsequent calls did not. I mean, you talk about the bounce of the year, because that was 92. So I came back in 94, called 4 races, got written up in the LA Times, came back in 95, called 4 races. And I also filled in at Hialeah in 95 for 4 days. Those calls at Hialeah, those 4 days, those were what I call the Saratoga Specials. Those things, they were slow motion. They were pretty bad. But there were a few good ones, and the best ones were impressions. And one of my best calls that time during 95, those 4 days, Kentucky Derby weekend, it was when Thunder Gulch won the Kentucky Derby. Of course, I bet the Lucas entry, Thunder Gulch jogged home, which is just a fitting way. You got the wrong Lucas. We've had the wrong Chad Brown, the wrong Baffert. How many times have we done that? But anyway, I had called a horse named Turf Star, and Turf Star was a horse trained by Jim Chapman, and Christy Chapman was riding and won a stakes race. But I called it as Trevor Denman, and that was a great call. Surrounded by a bunch of lackluster, slow, because I was learning how to, and they didn't have saddle towers. You were low to the ground somewhere to here. It was a monster challenge for a guy coming onto the East Coast who grew up on the West Coast, doesn't know any East Coast connections. So I'm so fortunate they gave me that shot the next year when Vic Stauffer left to take the job at Golden Gate, and they hired me, and they said, let's give the kid a shot. And to me, whenever I see a Red Oak stable horse, owned by the Brunetti family, I will always give them extra love and extra acknowledgement because they were there for me to give me that shot. But it started at Hollywood Park, and I definitely remember it, and I remember it vividly. They never gave me a shot at Hollywood when the jobs came open over and over again, but in the end, they set me up for success, and I'm forever grateful to that entire.
Why did they write you up in the LA Times?
What happened is Alan Malamud he had a column called Notes on a Scorecard that had begun with the Herald Examiner, and eventually he moved to the LA Times. And when you open the newspaper, the sports page, it was these little blurbs. And he would write like a tiny, I don't want to even say a paragraph because it would be like a sentence or two about many, many topics. And at the end of it, he said, among the calls on closing day at Hollywood Park were the calls of Frank Miramati, who did a fantastic job imitating Trevor Denman in one race, the late Harry Henson in another, and several announcers and a couple of others. And like on the top of that deal, he'd always have 3 pictures of different people. 2 of them on that particular day in the newspaper were Bill Walton and Muhammad Ali. So believe me, he wrote about, but he loved the track.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's now the Alan Malamud press box at Santa Anita. So he was a big time guy. He was a huge man. I met him one time at a Clipper game by fluke, and it was a great scene because you couldn't miss him. He made me look tiny. I mean, the guy was enormous, and he was eating a drumstick. And just to see that little drumstick being in hand, and drumstick was my favorite ice cream in school with 25 cents when I was a kid, in grade school. But just to see Alan Malamud eating a drumstick from afar. My mom had a gift basket business, and I had her send him. I just said, send this guy everything in the world. That was the nicest thing to get written up in that column. It's as good an honor as you can get. So the mud. I saw him at a Clippers game. It was a day game one day, and I walked up to him, and he said, "Hey, you did a good job." He said, I had to get a hold of the press box to learn how to spell your name, but he said I was very surprised and impressed. So he was very cool.
That's great. And you've mentioned it a few times, your imitations of other race callers and others. What was the marathon that you would do annually where you did a bunch of?
I did that. It was one time only. I actually was so my dear friend and a man who helped me during some of my toughest moments in life, the late great Luke Kreitbos, voice of the Kentucky Derby, was previously at Hollywood Park, Ruidoso, Turf Paradise. And in life, you got to remember those who really came through. And there were some very, very sad times I was going through, and he lifted me up and he got me the job on the fairs at a very important time in my life. Believe me, my number was flashing. And so Luke came.
Everybody said, I never met him. Everybody has great things.
Nicest guy ever, and the most humble guy ever. Whereas most people want to name drop as to who they had dinner with. He used to tell me, I got to hang out with my best friend. He does the laundry in the jocks room. Like, he wasn't like some guy that tried to be Mr. Cool and look who I know. That's why people loved him, because people don't like self-absorbed individuals. So Luke was not that. He was proud of his work. Don't get me wrong, and I'm sure he felt good about what he did. He called several derbies and he did it well. But Luke was a guy that was just a good man. And when he passed away, the job at Turf Paradise came open, and they hired me. I had done some fill-in there because the owner of Hollywood Park, Mr. Hubbard, he eventually never gave me Hollywood Park, but when Gary Henson, the guy I talked about, Harry's son, got ill, he brought me in to call the last 2 weeks of the 1999 season at Ruidoso. And I called the All-American Futurity, the world's richest quarter horse race. And at that time, Mr. Hubbard said, I don't know if I can help you. He said, but that guy might help you get into Turf Paradise. And he pointed to the general manager because he owned Turf Paradise. And that's how I got my foot in the door at Turf Paradise. Anyhow, Luke was happy for me. We had already become friends. I met Luke the day he auditioned for the Hollywood Park job. It was closing day 95. It was basically down to him and Vic Stauffer. And I was doing impersonation calls that day. And I remember asking Rick Bedecker, the vice president of marketing, I said, should I call one in my own voice? And he said, that won't be necessary. So I knew I wasn't in the race. So anyway, Luke got the job. Well, what are you going to do? And that was his guy. You know what? That's Mr. Hubbard was a loyal guy. That was his guy. And I was a young guy with very little experience. But you got to listen. You got to. I always say this in sales. You know, you do sales. I do. You got to ask for the business. So I was trying to get in the mix. Anyway, when he passed away, they hired me at Turf Paradise. And on the last day of the meet, they run a race called the Hasta La Vista. It's 1 mile and 7/8 on turf. And there was a guy who posted this race. And back then it had almost 1 million views. This is 20 years ago already. That thing would have had millions and millions of views. You can't even find it now. I think I found it through some obscure Twitter post. But I did 23 voices on the last race of the day. And the goal of that call was to, A, entertain the fans, and B, most importantly to me, was to honor Luke, because Luke was the voice of Turf Paradise. He was the pride of Turf Paradise. He had become such a big-time announcer, going to Hollywood and then going to Churchill, you know, from a man who started at Blue Ribbon Downs. He was just like the perfect guy that paid his dues. In fact, he used to give me trouble when I was at Hialeah as my first job. He's like, hey, man, you don't even know what it's like. You got to go through your conditions. Anyway, that last race, I called in 23 different voices. And at the end of it, I ended it purposely with Trevor Denman, my favorite, Ed Burgard, who was very close friends with Luke. He's the Los Alamitos announcer for many, many years. And then what I did is I went from Ed to Luke, and I basically, in Ed's voice, said, Turf Paradise will never be the same without Luke Kreipos. And then, fortunately, one of Luke's signature phrases came into play when the winner was pushing on by, because he used to say pushing on by. And my last words in a race call at Turf Paradise, when the Hasta La Vista was over, after doing 23 voices and completely out of breath, was I said, God bless the soul of Luke Kreipos. And I ended it there. And in fact, when I visited there in subsequent years, I was offered a couple times, would you like to call a race? And I said, you know what, man? I said what needed to be said on this microphone to honor my brother Luke. I can never say another word on this mic again, just because that's the way I would want to close it out, because Luke deserved that. And I always, you know, to me, I think it's important for us that are fortunate to still be on the right side of the soil to honor those who have helped us, who have been around us. And like a guy like Larry Letterman, who I met right here at Saratoga, we did this seminar together at Ciro's. We got a standing ovation for doing impersonations back and forth. It was either 97 or 98, an unbelievable day. I try to keep their legacies alive, because those are the guys that had an influence on me. And so you got to do that. And these are great announcers. So it's, you know, I feel like I'm doing my job. And a guy who myself, look, in 2016, stage 3 colon cancer. Believe me when I tell you, it wasn't looking good. And the fact that I'm here and I'm fighting and I'm doing the best I can and doing what I love, I want to remember those who did the same thing. And those guys are very special to me. And I think about them every single day.
Well, we're happy you're here.
Thank you.
Happy you're here at Saratoga and calling the big races. And that seems like a suitable spot to wrap up. But as we alluded to earlier, I have like 20 more questions to go. I'll hit you with one before we wrap up.
I love questions that I didn't know anything about. I can't stand pre-planned interviews.
Best booth you've ever been in?
Best booth. I mean, to me, it's hard to say Santa Anita would not be the best, just because it's where Trevor Denman was. From a visual standpoint, though, like watching the race, Louisiana Downs was really unbelievable, because it was way up high and you could see everything. And I'll always remember Tiz now marching around that track in the Super Derby, my first grade 1 call. From a able to watch a race standpoint, I don't think anything could be better than Louisiana Downs, just because of where I was. The higher, the better. The lower, the tougher. So Hialeah and Saratoga in a battle for the toughest booths, no question.
Okay. And while you're here, we'll tout, because I guess there's still be some opportunities. I had Sharon Dominguez in from Best the other day, and you do the third race call, and that goes to Best, the backstretch employee service team. They do good work. So I'll tout that as well.
That is available. So the public really enjoys that. I've had a lot of tremendous interaction with the fans. I know they enjoy that. And I try to make it a fun experience to show them kind of a behind the curtain look at what it is to call a race, and what the preparation is, what the challenges are, how you try to cover a mistake when you make one, and how you buy time when you're lost, and how you look for the fractions and things of this nature. And I find that the people really enjoy that. And look, I still remember the first time I went to a booth. So for me, I want to try to make that special. And I think that's the thing about Saratoga. All the people who work at Saratoga, including you, look, this is a long grind. It really is. We're tired, but it's a fulfilling tired. But we have to remember that in the end, this is about fan experience. And they're coming to this track for their moment, whether it's 4 days here, 3 days there, a weekend, a day. Our job every day is to make it as special as possible. And that best program, which benefits the backstretch employees, the people that are hurting back there and you know, it's a tough life back there. And we talk about it, we give a lot of lip service about it, but this is an opportunity to actually do something that brings money to them.
Yeah. Sharon talked about it.
I appreciate you doing that for them.
And
Sharon's wonderful.
Had Ramon and Umberto in from the chaplaincy. They do good work back there as well. Absolutely. There's a few organizations that really take care. I had Michael Dubb in, and Faith's House across the street does great for the kids. And so
it's important. You know, you need these people.
They're the backbone.
A guy like Michael Dubb, you know, he's been very successful in life, but you know, he's giving back, and he does it in a big way. It's a lot of cash he's peeling off for a good cause, but it's nice. It makes him feel good, and certainly it makes people respect him. And when they see the yellow and pink cap coming on the outside, they can say, hey, that's the guy who's helping us.
A couple more quick questions.
Sure.
What's it like to call your namesake?
Mirahmaadi. He did not opt to run in the Pacific Classic, which I think was actually a good idea. It's a pretty good field. They were threatening to run him in there, and I was wondering if he was going to be a rabbit to try to bother Fierce this early. I've enjoyed it. He was very disappointing in his early races. He was a little erratic, much like his namesake. Has a couple of issues. Nothing's going to go smoothly for a horse with that name. It was named by Tom Ryan of SF Racing. I've said it many times. Bob Baffert would never name a good horse after me. He's $1 million horse. He named a couple of bums sarcastically after me many moons ago. So he's a really good horse. He's a good-looking horse, and he loves Del Mar. So he's going to go to the Penn Mile next, and then from there, hopefully get into the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, which would be a phenomenal thing. He loves Del Mar. So he's got talent. He's got speed. And he likes that track. I think his best work is coming at Del Mar, but I've had a chance to call him on two of his wins. And a long-lost cousin showed up for the last win. I haven't seen her since she was like 9 years old. And so to have her come out with her daughter and to be able to watch that race, and she could find out that a horse was named Miramati. She found out one day by just having a TV on, and someone mentioned it. And so that was pretty cool to have her come out.
Yeah, that's fun.
And it's fun to call him, but it's nerve-wracking because early on, I mean, he got smoked in his debut. He was a big favorite. And then when we were here at Saratoga, when he was zigging and zagging at Del Mar, I'm like, come on, Bob. But and then he sent him to Maryland. I go, Bob, can I have some say in the management of this horse? Come on.
Turned it around. I like that he named a couple ironically after you, or sarcastic.
Oh, one of them was called Screen to Screen because he was watching me betting on simulcast one day, this race, then this race. So he named the horse Screen to Screen. Rick Pitino actually owned a piece of that horse. They paid $300,000 for him. It was Pegram, Watson, Whiteman, but I know Rick Pitino had that horse ended up running for $5,000. And then the other one was a classic. Carl Watson, who's a good friend. He's part of the Paul Whiteman, Carl Watson, Mike Pegram combo. We were sitting one day and talking, and I looked at him. I said, "You know, I'm a doctor, right?" And he looked at me like, "Come on." I said, "No, I'm an MD." Like, with a serious face. He goes, I said, "Yeah, money destroyer." So they name a horse Frank the MD. And Frank the MD was training, but he never made it to Santa Anita or the way. But he actually won like either 2 or 3 races in New Mexico, but he never turned into anything. But Frank the MD did win a few times, but he never did make the California circuit. He was one of those that, you know, sometimes a horse go there and then he ends up in New Mexico. Yeah. This one started in New Mexico, but they named Frank the MD. So yeah, Miramati was definitely a Tom Ryan deal, and it was based on a lot of conference calls we'd done together and some fun humor. And then one morning I went to Clocker's Corner with a group of like 30 people, called a few races with them as the participants. And Tom said, name that good Into Mischief after him. He gave me a choice, Into Mischief, American Pharoah, or Justify. I called American Pharoah 3 times. I love him. I said, how much were the horses? This one was $1 million horse. I said, I think I'll go with the Into Mischief.
And he turned out all right.
Why not? Yeah, he's a good horse.
Finally, pizza aficionado, you have anything you like in the Saratoga area?
Absolutely. Nove, the pizza bread that they serve is called the Sicilian, the Brooklyn. It's phenomenal. It's so tasty. Even my buddy Anthony Valinotti, who is a pizza restaurateur, and hopefully one day we'll have something up in this region for everybody to enjoy, DeLuca's in Arkansas. He loves that pizza. And I'll give you an under-the-radar one that a guy that I know from X, I guess it's called now instead of Twitter, pointed me to. If you like a sweet sauce, You have to like a sweet sauce for this. It's called Red Front Pizza. They have one in Troy, but there's one about 20 minutes away in Clifton Park, to go only. Again, if you don't like sweet sauce, don't do it. But it's called Cobb, cheese on the bottom.
Okay.
I do like it. Let's put it this way. I've been there to pick up 3 times this meat, and he only reminded me about it a few weeks ago. It's very good. All right. But I'd say Nove is in a class of its own with the pizza. But the pizza they give you a little sample of, you could order the big pizza, and it's called the Brooklyn. It's very, very good.
All right. And I've heard about the one down at Hot Springs.
It's called DeLuca's. He got an 8.7 from Dave Portnoy.
Yeah.
That changed his life. His business doubled. He's opened a second location.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, we've been talking about. I want to get in the pizza business one day myself. Why not? Who wouldn't want to be in the pizza business? At least I would save the pizza bill. It's an expensive bill. But Anthony is a pizza legend, and he's really good. He loves Saratoga. He grew up. We hung out. We've hung out for like 2-3 weeks this meet. And we're the best of friends, and we have a lot of laughs. We're just always laughing, busting each other's chops, and he did love. I mean, for him to comment about some of the other food he ate at Nove too, he's a big fan.
Very good. What's your schedule like after you complete the meet here?
After this, we got I have 4 weeks off, and then Santa Anita starts the end of September. We have that big day for the preps for the Breeders' Cup races, and then I'm off for 7 weeks. And then we start the big meet the day after Christmas. So it's a perfect schedule, and got 6 good days of race car. I like a horse tomorrow. I want to tell you at Kentucky Downs, believe it or not.
Okay.
I hate to promote anywhere other than right here, but it is a Saratoga horse. It's a Rusty Arnold horse running in the 8th race tomorrow. The horse's name is Mackinac. It's spelled Mackinac. M-A-C-K.
Oh, right.
That horse
spelling.
The owner's got a hold of me and call it Mackinac. I thought this horse ran exceptionally well in its debut. In fact, I ran into Ron Winchell, who owns Kentucky Downs, at the Country Corner Cafe one day for breakfast. I said, I'm going to give you a winner at Kentucky Downs. And he laughed, and he said, who is? And I showed it to him, and he took a picture on my phone. This horse ran second for Rusty Arnold and is going to run tomorrow against winners. So I saw Ron.
He just ran like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. And in fact, the horse who beat her came back and won the stake for Pletcher. So I thought to myself, well, that'll kill this horse's price in a maiden race. But the horse is running against winners. 3-1 on the morning line, Jose Ortiz. I think this horse will run huge.
All right. Very good.
It's the 8th race tomorrow, opening day. And again, I hate to talk about anything other than the live product, but they are Saratoga conditions.
Yeah, no, I got you. Rusty had some nice runners up here this week.
Yeah.
Frank, absolutely appreciate the time.
Love hanging with you.
We've run over time, but it was worth it. I had to get you over here before the meet ended. Have a great last 6 days and moving on to Santa Anita, and we'll talk again.
Thank you so much, Seth.
All right, we'll wrap it up for this Wednesday morning. We'll send you on to the remainder of the day. Tune in this afternoon or come on up. The sun's been out now for a while. It's going to be a gorgeous day, kicking off the last week of racing up here at Saratoga. But as far as TV, back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. handicapper support, 10 a.m. racing across America. See you then. That was great.
Great, brother. Thank you so much.
Haven't signed up for a Capital OTB account yet? Now's the time to take advantage of the sign-up bonus. Open up a new account with $200 or more, bet $400 by the end of the month, and receive a bonus $200 into your account. Plus, you can take advantage of everything an OTB account has to offer. Wagering from any device, live streaming, racing info, past performances, online promotions, and more. Sign up today and take advantage of the new account bonus. Details at capitalotb.com.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Oops, my bad. Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
You've been watching Racing Across America. Racing Across America has been brought to you by Pinnell's Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, Saratoga, just minutes from the track. And the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany. When you can't make it to the track, make it to the Clubhouse Racebook.